I will say this, though. I met Conor McGregor twice before at both the last 2 years Super Bowls. And off microphone, off camera, when it's just him, he's super nice. And he's pretty mellow. But that's not what he gets paid for. He gets paid to promote a fight, and then he gets paid to go beat somebody up. So when it's showtime, it's showtime. And I really think that whether it's staged or not, when the cameras are on, Conor McGregor's ready to shine at all times.
Welcome to the Reindl Report, a podcast out of San Diego, California that rewrites the definition of mediocrity.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
So come along for the ride as Paul Reindl takes you through the world of sports with insight, interviews, and incredibly bad jokes.
It just seems like the people that are so butthurt about it.
Did you just throw a butthurt out there?
Yeah, I said butthurt.
2005 called. They want their turn back.
Yeah, walked right into that one.
Now, here's your host, Paul Reindl.
All right, welcome to it, episode 31 of the Reindl Report. I am Paul Reindl, host of the Reindl Report. This is being recorded the week of November 7th. We are in November, about halfway through November almost. By the time you're hearing this podcast, being recorded a little late, I'll explain that in a minute. Election day. It was election week, and yeah, that happened. So that's all I have to say. I got a lot more to say, but I'm not going to say that right now because this is a sports podcast. I can't imagine you listening to this wanting to know what I think of the election and where I fall on political standpoints and all that. So we just won't even go there. How about that? Sound good? Sounds good. So yeah, this is a podcast. If you have been paying attention, if you've been following for a little while, you know this is a podcast that comes out once a week, typically on a Wednesday, sometimes in the morning, usually recorded on maybe a Tuesday night, being recorded a little later in the week, getting released a little later in the week this week, and that is because I'm excited about it. Gonna have a buddy of mine, Alex Padilla. He's a producer, a colleague of mine at the Mighty 1090, produces the Scott and BR show. I've been done with school for a couple years now. Okay, he's going to take me back to school. He is going to school me on something that I am pretty ignorant on, and I have no problem admitting that. I'm not usually wrong, but I will plead ignorance and just to certain things and say it's not me. I don't know much about that. I can't really comment on it. I wouldn't be able to sound at all educated on the matter. So we're going to talk a little MMA, a little UFC. There is a big fight coming up this weekend. Conor McGregor back in the octagon. Now, look, this is something that it's really growing very much so in the world of sports. UFC, MMA, it is, I think this is just my opinion. Again, I'm pleading ignorance here, so I could be completely off base, but I feel like, up until a couple of years ago, it was kind of a niche market. Wasn't very big. Well, now I don't really follow the sport very much. I see the headlines and I know a little bit, but I'm tuning in for all the big fights now. I'm still not paying $80 to watch them. But I'm following them. Whether I won't get into my methods of watching these fights. If you know why I'm laughing, then you might have partaken in some of those methods as well. But look, I think it's a very fascinating sport that is just rapidly growing in popularity. And again, I have no problem pleading ignorance here. This was, UFC was something that I used to follow a lot more back in the early 2000s, and then I just kind of lost touch with it. It became something that I just didn't really want anything to do with. And so now that it's really making a resurgence, or maybe resurgence isn't the right word. Maybe it never really left. But to me, in my following of sports, it just kind of fell off. but it's back, and I'm fascinated by it. I want to know more about it. So I'm going to bring in my buddy Alex Padilla. We're going to have a little chat. We're going to talk about the resurgence, and just the rising popularity of UFC, and as well as UFC 205. We're going to talk about the big fight coming up this weekend. So really excited about that. The reason this podcast is coming out a little late, because I wanted to schedule that and make sure that it all worked out rather than do 2 different podcasts this week and one coming out on one day, one coming out on the other. We're just going to put it all together. It's going to all come out at once. How about that? In the NFL, pretty interesting week. Pretty interesting week. Chargers won. Hey, right? This is San Diego Sports Podcast. How about that? The Chargers won. And how about this? They held on to a fourth quarter lead. Playing the Titans at home. It got interesting. Chargers won 43-35. Just an 8-point victory. And this was a game. There's a couple of minutes left. And I think the Chargers had a 15-point lead. And you're just thinking, there's not even the Chargers could blow this lead. And they didn't. They held on. Melvin Gordon putting the team on his back, though. What a performance. Easily the best game that he has had as a Charger and as a professional NFL football player. Just 196 yards on the ground, scored a touchdown. I think he had, it was 65 yards receiving as well. He was the offense. He had a hell of a game. And I'm going to try to not get too nitpicky here. I think by this point you probably know where I feel about Mike McCoy and how I don't think he's that great of a coach and how I don't think he's going to be the coach next year. Don't really need to get into that. Odds are, if you're a Chargers fan and you're listening to this podcast, you probably feel the same way. So we don't need to go there. But again, still questionable calls by the coaching staff. And it's just, look, the Chargers have a fairly favorable home second half of the schedule. They got this game coming up this weekend against the Dolphins. They're limping into the bye week, but then they get to recover a little bit. Home stretch. They could be 5-5 with 6 games to go. Favorable home schedule, favorable road schedule as well. This is a team that probably won't make a run, but they're the best 4-5 football team I've ever seen. Hands down. Absolutely. This team is still competing, and good God, if it wasn't for the injuries, where this team, even with the injuries, this team could be, 6-3. Could be. But without the injuries, they're no less than 6-3. Absolutely not. So my point here is just that it's getting tough. It's just getting redundant to call out the coaching staff, Ken Wisenhunt and Mike McCoy, on why aren't they going for it on 4th and 1 when your defense has been just beating this offense all day long. You're deep in the you're in the red zone. Just go for it. Put this thing away. Put it on ice. Let's go. Because I don't know if they're going to make a run to the playoffs and be in playoff contention. But at that point, that's when it would be a big deal that these coaching decisions are, very questionable. And that's when it would start to go, hey, are you coaching to win? Or are you coaching to not lose? Those are 2 different things. What's going on here? A couple of those decisions made again on Sunday, but I don't know. I just don't think it's worth getting into at this point. Chargers overall, good game. While we're on the Chargers, so we're not going to get political, but guess what? We're about to. So who'd you vote for? No, we're not going to go there. Measure C, Chargers Stadium proposition to raise the hotel tourism tax. What, 6%, 6.5%? It did not pass. It needed 66%, 2/3 yes. It got 43%. Yes. So well below the 66, the 2/3 majority there. And look, I'm not saying anything that a Chargers fan hasn't heard already, and I realize that we all knew this wasn't going to pass. We knew that. I can't really think of a scenario where any measure on any ballot today, just given where we're at today as a people, I can't really imagine much of anything getting 2/3 yes or 2/3 no. I don't know. I guess I could see 2/3 no, but 2/3 yes, that's pretty overwhelming for just about anything, let alone some silly sports stadium, right? But it is so much more than that. That's the thing that I just have not been able to understand throughout this whole process. Since we knew what the proposal was, where the Chargers wanted to be, how they wanted to get there, and what they wanted to do, I'm failing to see how this was a bad deal for the city. San Diego, we are so spoiled. We really are. I mean, top 3? Top 2 destination? Maybe the top destination in the country? I mean, we are lucky that we live where you vacation, right? That's what we get to say down here. People aren't going to not come to San Diego because their hotel tax went up an extra 6%. They just aren't. Okay, I usually make a trip every 2 years out to Las Vegas. You know what I do when I'm going to Las Vegas? I know I'm going to spend a lot of money. I'm going on vacation. I'm there to have a good time. I'm going to spend some money. I'll try to get around something like, as far as like the $18 drinks. Yeah, I might try to buy some bottles and just bring them up to the hotel room. Make sure I'm feeling good before I go out. Get a little buzz on. But hey, I know I'm going to be spending money. I know dinner is going to be expensive. I know I'm going to have to pay for the hotel room. I know if we want to go into a bar, a popular bar or a club or anything like that, there's probably going to be a cover, especially being a guy. Probably going to have to do that. I know I'm probably going to lose money gambling, but I still bring money. I'm there on vacation. I'm there to have a good time. When I'm booking my hotel, here's what I do. I go to Expedia or whatever website I'm using. Maybe I'll just go directly to the website, the hotel's website. I select the dates that I want to be there. I select what amenities I want in my room. And then I scan and I look for the lowest price because I'm a cheap ass. I get it. Oh, $140 a night. Okay, let's see if that one's $160 a night. Ooh, here we go. $112 a night. Sound good? Talk to the people I'm going out there with. Sounds good? Sounds good? Okay, book it. You know what I don't do? I don't ask, wait. What's this hotel tax here? No, we can't do this anymore. Nope. Look at that. That is too high. That is too much. What is that, 13%? Yeah, 13% my ass. Nope, not happening. Let's change our plans. Going to Joshua Tree. We're going camping this weekend. That's what we're doing. Screw Vegas. No, nobody does that. Nobody does that. You might try to nickel and dime the hotel, like maybe you open the mini bar or maybe you were watching a movie and you go down and you get your bill and you go, I didn't watch that movie. What are you talking about? It's preposterous. I didn't open the mini bar. No. It wasn't me. Prove it. I didn't do it. You might try to save a few bucks that way, but nobody looks at the hotel tax and changes their vacation and doesn't go to that destination anymore because of the damn hotel tax. You just go, okay, sweet. When you rent a car, you don't look at the tax. You're just like, there's tax. It's a tax. Here's what's the bottom line. Because at the end of the day, most of that stuff is already included. When I'm scrolling on the website and I see, okay, $112 a night, probably got the tax already included in there. Okay, I'm just you're looking for the bottom dollar, and you're like, can I afford that? Do I want to pay that? Sure, done. Let's go. So people are still going to come to San Diego, and the part that I just don't understand is if you are a San Diego citizen, which you have to be a city citizen to vote on. You had to vote on Measure C. I was pretty pissed. I couldn't actually vote on it. And I live maybe half a mile from the city limits, just right there on the border at La Mesa, El Cajon. It wasn't on my ballot, so I didn't get to vote on it. So I was a little bummed about that. But unless you are somebody who lives in the city and you don't stay in hotels in San Diego, which, I've heard of staycations, but I would argue that most people probably don't stay in a hotel in San Diego. They probably don't. You're not going to be affected by this. Let's let the tourists pay for it. Why not? Why not? I mean, hell, have you been to a Chargers game lately? Half the stadium is full of the other fans anyways that travel because so many teams are in cold weather cities. Seattle, Chicago, Green Bay, Buffalo, New England. Denver's a cold city. I mean, all those fan bases, Pittsburgh, teams that travel well, if they got San Diego on their schedule and it's a road game for that team, why wouldn't they want to plan a vacation to San Diego in mid-December to watch their favorite team play? Qualcomm already has thousands and thousands of teams supporting the other team, of thousands and thousands of fans supporting the opposing team. Maybe, okay, sure, a handful of them do probably live here and went to the game and aren't tourists, but a lot of them are tourists, so why not tax them? Comic-Con, one of the absolute biggest events in the entertainment industry, brings tons of people to the city. Higher tourism tax. If we can keep Comic-Con and have the tax increase, boom, there we go. There's more money. I just don't understand it. And, I see the opposition as, well, if we're going to raise the hotel taxes, we should use it for roads and for school. I don't even like football. I don't like football, so why should my money go there? Okay, fine. And you know what? It should go to that because here would be my response to that is, okay, well, look, I don't have a kid. I don't have any kids, but I don't have a kid in every single school in San Diego. But I still think we should fund the schools a little bit. I don't drive on every road in San Diego, but I still think it's a good idea to get the potholes filled and get the roads fixed. I mean, do you see the argument there that I'm making? It's like, just because you don't personally benefit from it, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing for the city. It doesn't. And it's not going to impact you negatively. You only can benefit from this. I mean, you're going to get a Super Bowl. You're going to get the Final Four. You're going to get the college football championship. You're going to get major concerts. You're going to get huge events. I just don't get it. It's too bad. It really is too bad. But that's me. That's on my soapbox for the Chargers and Measured C. And I told you we wouldn't get political, but we had to get a little sports political, right? As if Chargers fans haven't already heard enough of that. Well, other than that, Week 9, fairly interesting games throughout the day on Sunday. I mean, how about the Steelers? What the hell? I mean, so Ben Roethlisberger, I was shocked he was even on the field. I mean, it was like 18 days ago he had meniscus surgery or something like that on the knee, and he's out there starting for the Steelers just 2.5 weeks later. Pretty impressive. And he wasn't very good, and the team was not very good. They were playing Baltimore. I was watching that game in the morning, and Ben put up decent numbers, I guess. A lot of those, I guess, if you want to call them garbage points, you can, but a lot of fourth quarter yards, a lot of fourth quarter points made it interesting. And Pittsburgh's going for the you had to have seen this by now. They're going for the onside kick, and their kicker tries to do something in college that he did in college, and he fakes like he's going to kick it left, and then he hooks his right leg around the back of his left leg, and he tries to kick it right, and it did not work. Not even close. It looked like he was doing a freaking like Irish River dance or something out there. And Pittsburgh, it was a penalty. The refs were huddled up and laughing. They're like, I don't even know what do you call right here? What's the penalty? What's the rule? And it did. There was no re-kick. Baltimore got the ball, took a knee, and they won. But it was pretty ridiculous. Sunday night's game was great, I thought. Derek Carr and the Raiders, they're for real, man. Beat the Broncos at home. First place in the AFC West, the best division in football this year, once again. And, I'm not here to brag and, say I told you so, but I'm feeling pretty good about my pick that I have on record here. You can go on the RondoReport.com. You can go back on iTunes, go find it. It was towards the beginning of the year. I believe it was one of the episodes where we had Downtown Tom on. We were making our playoff predictions. Who's going to win, the division. And I'm pretty sure I still gave Denver the division, but I did say Oakland was going to make the playoffs. I was confident that they're turning it around up there, and they are. They have. They totally have. I mean, 7-2, not bad. Not bad. Here's something I wanted to I had to get off my chest. I was watching the Giants game, and what the hell is it with the end zone fades? Can we just stop with that? Please, can we stop? Look, if you got Megatron, who's obviously, he's retired, but a tall freak wide receiver like that, Gronk. First of all, it's not really an end zone fade. It's a jump ball that you know that your guy's going to get, essentially. I am so sick of the corner end zone fade. And I don't know why it's such a big deal. I don't know why it's so popular. I feel like it works 1 out of every 10 times I see that play. And it's always done in the most bizarre situations. I rarely see it on 1st and 10 from the 15, from the 20, just going to, take a shot. Why not? You usually see it on like 3rd down or even 4th down. If it's late in the game, the team's going to go for it. When you're in a situation like that, it's like, just get the 1st down. Don't take a shot that never works into the end zone on 3rd down, 3rd and long, 4th and whatever. Just get the 1st down and then try again. Get a new set of downs. Let's go. Again, if you've got a guy like Gronk and, Megatron and these big, bulky, tall receivers, it's not really an end zone fade at that point. It's like, hey, I'm going to toss the ball up there because I know my guy's just big enough, tall enough. He's going to out-jump the defender, and he's going to go get it. But I was watching the Giants game, and I saw just multiple end zone fades, couple in a row. And I just said, you know what? I can't handle this anymore. I think I turned the channel. I think I went back to red zone. But I was just like, why are they doing this? It never works. Obviously not never, but very rarely does it work. And it's just getting to the point where, what's the appeal there? I mean, am I crazy? Somebody please tell me they feel the same way watching the end zone fades. Last, kind of wrap it up here before we get to AP and talk a little UFC coming up here. It's the midway point, and I think that you've been seeing a lot of the midseason awards, and I think that's fair. I've been seeing something that I just get out of here with that. I'm not going to get into like Coach of the Year and all that, but MVP. I saw Matthew Stafford's name in the MVP category at the halfway point on multiple outlets, multiple people saying that he would be their pick. What? What's next? You're going to tell me that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton? I mean, come on. What? Matthew Stafford? No. Where did that come from? The Lions are the team to beat? What? Because they've been playing well recently? I mean, they're still 5-4. Come on. Get out of here with Matthew Stafford, MVP. at the halfway point. Are you kidding me? Look, here's my picks. Obviously, I gotta say who I think is the MVP at the halfway point. If I'm gonna absolutely criticize hearing about Matthew Stafford's name and the Lions are the team to beat. First of all, I honestly could make a compelling argument, I think, for Derek Carr. He's not the flashiest. He's not the most athletic. And this is going to fall into the age-old argument in sports and pro sports of, is it the most valuable player or is it just the best player? Do you just pick the best player on the best team and that's it? Or do we really look at who's the most valuable player? I've been hearing Dak Prescott or Ezekiel Elliott, both of them. The problem is the two, because they're both very talented. I don't think the Cowboys are as good of a team without one or the other. The two feed off of each other, and they kind of pull away from each other as far as like who's the MVP. So I don't think you can give it to them. I think Matt Ryan is in the conversation. Dude can sling it. Dude can sling it. Matty Ice. I've been critical of him before. And obviously it helps having a guy like Julio Jones having himself a nice little season over there in Atlanta. I could argue that Matt Ryan could be the MVP of this, again, midseason, right? Midseason awards. I think just on the outskirts, I think Phillip Rivers is in the conversation. Dude's already got like 2,500 yards. With the injuries to this team and the weapons that he's had to use on offense, that's impressive that they are 4-5. It really is. Better record. Team close out a few of those games earlier in the year like they should have. Rivers in the conversation, sure. I seem to forget somebody. Oh, yeah, Tom Brady. That's right. Yeah. So here's the deal. Tom Brady is going to be the MVP at the end of the 2016 season. Book it. You heard it here first. I just cannot see how he's not the MVP. The only reason I won't say it right now is because we're talking the midseason. You know, he missed 4 games. So now over the span of 16 games with 12 games total, barring any injuries, he'll still put up better numbers than just about everybody in the NFL. He'll be more efficient. He'll have as many or more touchdowns than most players. Probably not as many yards as guys that had 4 extra games on him. He'll have fewer interceptions. He will have the most wins. Tom Brady will be the MVP. But at the midway point, the team's only played 8-9 games, depending on where the bye week falls. Well, he's missed half the season. I would still entertain the argument that who cares? Look at what he's done in the time that he has been here. He's the most valuable player. But the team also went 3-1 without him. So Tom Brady being the MVP, my prediction of that happening at the end of the year, it's kind of a little bit of both. Like, I was just talking about, is it the most valuable player or is it just the best player? Tom Brady's both. He's the best quarterback in the game on the best team right now in the NFL. Is he the most valuable player? Is Tom Brady more valuable to the Patriots than Derek Carr is valuable to the Raiders? See, now that I think is interesting. I think that is fascinating, and that's a good argument that I'm having with myself, apparently. But, I mean, honestly, look, the Patriots went 3-1 without Brady. They're on a roll with him, of course. I mean, there's no discredit to Tom Brady and his abilities. Or Bill Belichick's, no discredit to him as a coach. Love the hoodie. Do you think the Raiders are 7-2 if Derek Carr wasn't on the team? If Derek Carr missed 4 out of their 9 games, are they 7-2? I don't think so. Not by a long shot. So depending on where you fall, is it just the best player on the best team and or is it really the most valuable player? I think we could have ourselves a little race. But I'm happen to pick Tom Brady when we get to the half. I'm picking Derek Carr at the halfway point, but when we get to the end of the regular season, I think it's going to be Tom Brady. All right, coming up on half an hour, that's going to kind of wrap things up with this portion of the podcast. But hey, coming up, if you are, look, I think this is going to be an informative interview for a wide range of people. Maybe you're like me and you think, I'm not going to say you think UFC is stupid, because I don't think that. But maybe, there was a point where I did. And I'm going to get into that with Alex here in a little bit. So maybe that's where you fall. Maybe you just don't really know anything about it. You don't really care, but a lot of people are talking about it. Every month or two, there's some big fight in Vegas, and everybody's tweeting about it, and everybody's talking about it. And then you see like you'd see a vine of the knockout and be like, cool, I saw everything I need to see. Sweet. Or maybe you're really excited. Maybe you're really into UFC. And there's a big fight. UFC 205 is coming up. And you want to know what somebody who follows the UFC, follows MMA, knows what he's talking about. We're going to get his opinions on the fight as well as the sport as a whole. That's coming up next. Alex Padilla talking MMA, UFC 205. That's next.
Woo! Bring them out, bring them out, bring them out, bring them out. Woo! Bring them out, bring them out.
All right, that's enough football talk. That's enough of me ranting about measure C, measure D, measure whatever the hell they were. A lot of good football talk there, but this is something I'm really excited about. I've been wanting to get good friend of mine, Alex Padilla. Been wanting to get him on the podcast now for a little while, but now we have a really good excuse. We're going to talk a little UFC, a little MMA, and I'm going to go outside of my comfort zone here because I don't know a whole lot about UFC, mixed martial arts. I over the last year or two, okay, there's a big fight coming up this weekend. I'll find some way to stream it illegally online because I'm not going to pay $90 to watch it. But I've been paying attention to just the big fights. But I want to bring in Alex here. We're going to talk a little UFC. We'll talk about UFC 205 coming up this weekend. Alex Padilla, are you there?
I'm here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So Alex Padilla, he is a producer here at the Mighty 1090 along with myself, produces the Scott and BR show. How long have you been doing that?
4 years? 3 years? Something like that?
Right on.
Somewhere in between. You lose count after a while.
Just one day blends into the next?
Exactly. It's like a week after week,
Exactly. I hear you. All right, let's talk a little UFC. I was talking earlier in the podcast. This is something that I used to watch a little bit growing up, kind of about the same time when I was still watching WrestleMania, it was WWF back then, Alex. I don't know if you remember that.
That's when as soon as they dropped the F, I stopped watching.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with that more. But I remember watching some of the earlier days in UFC, early 2000s maybe, and it was cool, it was entertaining. I was 11, 12 years old. It was something I was getting into, and then it kind of just fell off for me personally. I mean, it turned into, once I started seeing everybody wearing a Tap Out t-shirt, and I knew that I wasn't roided out enough, and I didn't have a Monster energy drink sticker on my truck. I mean, I just felt like this isn't for me. Am I wrong? Was it for a while? Was it kind of a niche market, right?
So, when I started watching it was 2006, which is Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. That was the first fight I ever really watched. And back then, I remember, social media was still kind of a new thing. Facebook was just invented, and Mark Zuckerberg opened it up for everybody. And, there was no Twitter, and I still had a MySpace page, I think. So, it was a niche market because, if you weren't into that lifestyle, into that tap-out lifestyle, even, a metal militia lifestyle, it didn't really appeal to a lot of people. So, for me personally, I don't know how a lot of people saw it. I didn't really pay attention to anything outside the UFC. I always made fun of the Ed Hardy shirts and the tap-out shirts, but I just loved the fight. So it was definitely niche back then, and it wasn't really mainstream either. You didn't see it on ESPN or anything, really.
And now you see it on Fox Sports 1, you see it on Spike TV, variations, obviously, of UFC, different MMA leagues and all of that.
Yeah, that's the only channel they were really on back then was Spike.
Spike Network.
Spike and pay-per-view, and now I don't even know if Spike's still around.
I'm not sure. If they are, I couldn't tell you a single thing that is broadcasted on Spike TV.
Me neither.
Okay, so that's good stuff right there. But now it's really grown. I mean, it's similar to, we live here in San Diego. I've personally just noticed it's really big down here. There's a lot of gyms, and there very well could be a lot of gyms all over the country. But I know a lot of pro, martial artists. They train here, they live here. San Diego is big on MMA and UFC. A lot of local guys, they just make the drive out to Vegas and they compete. It's similar to, the craft beer scene. Was a niche market for a while. Now everybody wants, to be in on craft beer. Soccer, I still haven't jumped on board with soccer completely.
It's only a matter of time.
It's only a matter of time. But, it is exploding now. It just sold, UFC sold for, $400 billion? $4.2
billion.
$4.2 billion. Okay.
Yeah. So... And I think hand in hand it goes with the emergence of social media, and also before that, or a little bit after that, was them signing a mainstream deal with Fox. So they signed a contract at the emergence of whenever Fox Sports 1 was invented. They needed some play-by-play. They needed some live games. So they had NASCAR, they had baseball, and they jumped in on the MMA market. And now that's why you see it on Fox Sports 1. That's where you see it on Fox Sports 2 sometimes, and then every now and then you'll see it on the actual big Fox. So, but even before they got there, I want to say it was like UFC 100. This is like their biggest thing ever. Brock Lesnar was a champion. I feel like Brock Lesnar and the crossover guys, they really helped make it a mainstream thing, because then ESPN started talking about it, and then all those wrestling dudes came over with Brock Lesnar, and they were like, oh damn, Brock Lesnar's really the heavyweight champion, and he's fighting for real. And so then when ESPN started picking it up, and they made an ESPN MMA show, and then they contributed a whole page on their website. So it was a really slow thing, but then once it hit, it really hit. And I don't really know the numbers, what they draw on Fox Sports 1 really, but I know that Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz was well over a million buys. And boxing hasn't had a fight over a million since Mayweather-Pacquiao. So, I don't know when the last time you even watched a boxing fight besides Mayweather-Pacquiao, but I know a lot of people that just tune in and watch UFC, whether it's Conor McGregor, whether it's Ronda Rousey, whether it's Brock Lesnar. They actually have names, and now it's mainstream. Now you got Ronda Rousey. She's remaking Roadhouse. She's Dalton. So that's how big it is. They're stars now. They're legit celebrities around the world. Even George St. Pierre, who was the welterweight champion, doesn't fight anymore. He was in Captain America, Winter Soldier. So it's just that's how big this thing has gotten, and it happened really quick. Because like you said, you stopped watching around 2006 when Chuck Liddell was fighting, and it's only 10 years ago, and look how much bigger it's gotten since. I think it's probably the fastest growing sport next to soccer in America.
Yeah, no, it sure seems like that for sure. It's just everyone is talking about the big fights now. It's not just the guys that worked out 4 times a day, had the tap-out shirts or anything like that. Everybody, Jim Rome, Colin Cowherd, everybody, major sports networks are talking about the big fight. And it was not that way 10 years ago.
Yeah, and then you brought up San Diego, and obviously the weather and all that other stuff that you hear for every other sport. But really, it's those Brazilian guys that are the jiu-jitsu guys, the Nogueira guys. They opened up a gym in San Diego. You've heard of Hoist Gracie, someone in his family, the Gracies. They opened up a gym in San Diego. Dominic Cruz is a 135-pound champion right now. He trains out of Chula Vista, the Affliction team. So, you're right. San Diego is a massive hotbed for training. And it's San Diego and South Florida. That's really the hottest bed, and everybody has their camps everywhere around the country, obviously. But there's multiple here. Whereas even the women's fighters, Cyborg, I don't know if you know her. She's been trying to fight Ronda Rousey for years. She trains right next to the sports arena. So there's gyms all over. There's UFC gyms all over the place in San Diego, first of all, and then there's tons of contenders and champions here in San Diego too. So yeah, Colin Cowherd had Dana White on today, and Jim Rome always has Dana White. Like you said, man, it's everywhere. And if you watch today's press conference, you can see why. It's entertaining.
We're gonna get to that. I promise. We are definitely gonna get to that. We're talking with Alex Padilla on Twitter at AlexPadilla86, talking UFC 205, little MMA here, something that we don't really get to a bunch on the Rindle Report. Alex, look, I said it earlier, I said at the beginning of this interview that I try to be as educated about things when I'm talking about them as much as I can, and I will admit when I don't know much, and that's why I bring in somebody like you to, take me to school here. So maybe this is a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. UFC 205 coming up this week. All the fights on Saturday nights, pay-per-view tickets. About $90 usually, somewhere in that range?
They're not there yet. They're about $70 right now.
Okay, so $70.
That's the HD one.
Okay. If we ever got, I couldn't even think off the top of my head the biggest fight. They talked about Mayweather. Would he ever fight? Would he ever go with Ronda Rousey or anything like that? But if they ever organized just the most ridiculous fight, and I know it's been 205 now, it's probably not going to change. Will the sport ever get to a point where it won't be on pay-per-view? Like, it might be the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl is not pay-per-view. It's the biggest sporting event in the world every year. The World Cup's not pay-per-view. Will there ever be a point where it's making so much money on commercials and this is such a big fight that it'll be on Fox or NBC or anything like that?
Well, when I would say no, because like in boxing before it, when people are buying pay-per-views by the hundreds of thousands and occasionally the millions, that's a lot of money. And I don't really know their contract, their deal with Fox, how it works. So Ronda Rousey is probably never going to fight on Fox, and Conor McGregor is probably never going to fight on Fox because they're bringing in a million pay-per-view buys, and that's $70 million. I think that's the right math. And that's not even including attendance. That's not even including their in-house commercials that they sell during the pay-per-view. So to say that it could be like the Super Bowl, I think yes. I do think that if you put Conor and Ronda and let's say like John Jones when he comes back, I think those are going to be the biggest names in MMA right now. If you put them on NBC or Fox, because that's their contract, if you put them on Fox, they're definitely going to get, I don't know, I wouldn't say Super Bowl numbers right now, but I would definitely say like in the 20s of millions, maybe even in the 30s, because that's the kind of like entertainment that Conor is providing, and that's the kind of intrigue that Ronda has provided, even though she lost. But to get as big as a Super Bowl, I don't think anything's going to get as big as a Super Bowl in sports. Maybe if you would have put the election on Tuesday night on one network only, maybe that one. But I don't think anything's going to get the Super Bowl draws like 100 million. I don't even know how many people watch the Super Bowl, but it's like a ridiculous number that I don't think is. It's not because the thing with MMA still, it's still a sport and it's still a fighting sport. So you're not going to get those wholesome families that tune into the Super Bowl to watch the commercials and eat wings. They're not going to. A lot of families out there aren't going to put their kids to watch because it still has that stigma of cage fighting. We haven't brought it up yet, but it's going to be the first event in New York for a reason because there was lawmakers that still put this as cage fighting, even though it's regulated, even though nobody's died on it, even though there's medical attention on it. It's still. And then at the end of the day, really, it is still cage fighting, and you can't really beat somebody up and hurt somebody in there. So you're always going to lose a bunch of audience right there. And I think with the Super Bowl and with the NFL, that we maybe are seeing their ratings go down a little bit, whether that's protests, whether that's concussions, whether that's whatever. I don't think MMA or any sport, to be fair with you, is ever going to get Super Bowl big ever.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Definitely, there's a lot to chew on there. Let's start making our way over to UFC 205.
Are you going to watch UFC 205 before we even get into it? Are you intrigued enough without us talking about it yet?
Say that again?
Are you actually going to watch 205? Before we start talking about it, before you get more details about it? Has it actually intrigued you enough already? Just curious for myself.
Yes, absolutely, and mainly because of somebody that I want to talk about in a couple of minutes, Conor McGregor. Okay. I find him to be must-see TV, and so I want to talk to him. I want to start on the women's side first, though. Yeah. I see Miesha Tate's on the card. She, if I remember this correctly, she beat Holly Holm, who beat Ronda Rousey. and then lost, right, recently in June or July?
She lost to Amanda Nunes in June or July. She got viciously TKO'd. Amanda Nunes was just scary, where it was not pretty. Misha Tate's face, she's such a really beautiful person, but oh my God, she was bleeding so much, and her face was so mishmashed. If you would have told me that Misha Tate, I maybe wouldn't have believed you. But yeah, she's not the champion anymore. So ever since Ronda lost, Holly Holm lost her next fight, then Misha Tate lost her next fight, and now Amanda Nunes is going to fight Ronda in December. So yeah, Misha Tate's on the card.
So it just seems like it all comes back to Ronda Rousey. And I know she is the queen of UFC. I've seen people that follow the sport a lot closer than I do. It seems like mixed reviews on Ronda Rousey. Some people are over her. Some people think she's the diva, and then some people are like me are just dude, she's badass. She's a badass chick. So who's kind of the front runner right now on the women's side? Not just for this card in particular, but with some of the names. You mentioned Cyborg earlier, who trains here in San Diego. They talk about that as a super fight on the female side. What's the near future look like on the women's side?
I think right now it's really hard to say because there is a woman out there named Juliana Pena who was gonna fight Amanda Nunes, but Ronda Rousey decided to come back. So it's someone that probably no one's ever heard of, Juliana Pena. And then you got Amanda Nunes fighting Ronda Rousey in December, and that's going to be around Christmas time, I believe. And that's really kind of where it's paused right now. The world is waiting to see how Ronda's going to come back. And I just saw her on Ellen the other day, and she was like, "This is one of my last fights, so enjoy it while you can." And from what I saw Amanda Nunes against Misha Tate, and what I've seen Amanda Nunes do before, it's not going to be an easy fight. So for people that are expecting Ronda Rousey to come in and beat her up in an Instagram video again, I think those days are long gone because what Holly Holm did to Ronda Rousey is kind of how in football they're like, oh, they showed us how to beat that team. That's kind of what happens. If you can get Ronda standing up, and if she's going to come at you and not defend herself smartly or intelligently, and you definitely have a chance to beat her and take her and win that fight because Ronda Rousey is ridiculous on the ground. There's nobody that can really stop her on the ground. She will armbar anybody almost in any weight division. I've seen her training with men and toss them around. I even saw her break a guy's hip once by tossing him. So it's Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey. It's kind of stopped right now. Really, it has because, like I said, Holly Holm lost 2 fights in a row since she beat Ronda. Misha hasn't won since losing her belt, and she fights on Saturday. So we'll kind of see what happens. If Misha loses to Raquel Pennington on Saturday, then now Raquel Pennington has a 4-fight win streak. So there's a lot of names that people don't know, but I think that doesn't really matter at the moment. What matters is Amanda Nunes versus Ronda Rousey in December. And then we can start talking about what's next.
Well, I've watched several Ronda Rousey fights, but really all I need to see was her breaking Turtle's arm in Entourage to know don't mess with Ronda's armbar.
Do not mess. If she has you in an armbar, do yourself a favor and tap.
It's done. You're done. All right. UFC 205. Before we get to the main event, it's in New York this year, and coming up on Saturday. It is in New York City, Madison Square Garden of all places. That's a big deal in the world of UFC. Am I right?
That's a big world. That's a big thing in any world, right? If there was a boxing fight there, it's a big deal. If there's a concert there, it's a big deal. So yeah, it's definitely a huge deal.
Well, I mean, not just the venue in particular, but the fact that
New York.
Getting into New York, right? Leaving Vegas and now being able to have the fights in New York. That's huge for the sport.
Yeah, it's obviously when you can't go to New York City, the #1 media market in the country, you're missing out on a ton of exposure and a ton of money. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details of why it has been illegal until 2016 for some reason. Believe it or not, it's a culinary union with people holding it back. And that's a giant, long story that nobody needs to hear. But, yeah, it's legal now in New York. It's the first ever sanctioned MMA event ever. So UFC is kind of paving the way for all the other companies. And it's people always are, you might hear, this is the biggest UFC event ever. And I don't agree with that because there's not a lot of names on this pay-per-view that you might recognize. But I tell you what, this is the best top to bottom. This is like a silly, ridiculous card. They have 3 championship fights. Like, UFC is not holding anything back with the first event in New York. They know it's a big deal. MMA fans know it's a big deal. And if you saw it today, it's going to be really epic, I think.
All right, well, let's get to it then. Let's get to the main event. Eddie Alvarez, Conor McGregor. First, I got to ask, Conor McGregor, are you a fan or not? Because it seems
I'm a big fan.
Okay, you're a big fan. I am too. He seems like the kind of guy. There's a lot of them out there in sports. You either love him or you hate him, and there's not a whole lot of in between.
Yeah, I really do compare him to Floyd Mayweather. And the fact, yeah, they're flamboyant, and yeah, they talk a lot of crap, and yeah, they're really loud and all that. But the thing I always liked about Mayweather is that he always backed it up, and he never lost. And Conor McGregor's the same way. We did see him lose, but that was like special circumstances. Him going up 25 pounds to fight a bigger guy, and on 10 days' notice. So that was a whole lot of and anything could have happened that fight. But then we saw him, train to fight that guy again, and he beat him, decisively. So I'm a fan of Conor McGregor. I really am. I don't mind his flamboyancy at all. I really don't.
Talking about Nate Diaz, right? Going up a couple classes. Yeah, see, yep. I knew that. I knew something. Yeah.
I don't think if you didn't know that, you don't watch sports. I think everybody knew it was Nate Diaz. Those 2 fights were just epic, and the trash talking was awesome. It was a really fun 6-7 months right there.
Yeah, well, there's a few things guaranteed in life: death, taxes, and Conor McGregor stirring things up at a presser. And that happened again today. And I actually got a little snippet here. I'm going to play it for you. But I just want to ask before I play it. I'll play it, and then I want to get your thoughts. I mean, do you ever get to a point? And I've seen it with other athletes. One of my favorite athletes is Richard Sherman. I think he's great. I think he's very talented, and I think he's very flamboyant and outspoken, but he backs it up. He's a hell of a football player. But there's also some times where I just go, all right, now just stop, calm down a little bit. You made your point, calm down. So earlier at the UFC 205 press conference, here is Conor McGregor and Eddie Alvarez.
No, I came for an apology from him. I want an apology for saying my wife and kids. Suck these big artists.
I mean, yeah, that's hilarious. I was dying when I heard that. But I wasn't watching the actual presser. I went back and found that clip. But so maybe it was out of context or anything like that. But at any point, does the flamboyancy that you mentioned earlier and the talking and the talking and the talking, does it get to a point where you're just like, all right, calm down, Conor. Let's take it back a notch?
It definitely gets to that point for a lot of people, especially if you're a fan of Eddie Alvarez, who's from Philadelphia. So if you're a Philly fan, yeah, it probably got to that point already. But for me, I find it entertaining. And I was watching that press conference live today with Scott behind me and other people, and they're like, "Oh, that's so staged, that's so fake." And I'm like, I really if you've seen Conor McGregor from day one, that's how he is. And whether that's not your style of promotion, then okay, then it's over. Then you're over it. But for me, I feel like these guys come around so rarely that I enjoy it. I enjoy when the fighters don't respect each other. I enjoy when the fighters talk trash about each other. And today got personal because Conor brought up Eddie's kids and wife, and then Eddie today dropped some. I don't know if it's true, but he dropped a little bombshell about Conor having, he's not married, but cheating on his girl, and now he's having babies. So it's gotten very personal, this particular fight, which I wasn't expecting, because I've never seen Eddie Alvarez get like this before. But it definitely can get old if you're not a fan. But to me, I am a fan of Conor, and I am a fan of Eddie, and I just find it hilarious. I find it good promotion, and it goes back to that thing. If you're a parent and you have kids, you don't want him to hear that, so that it probably gets old for families too. But for me, a single guy who doesn't have kids, I love it.
You mentioned something that I wanted to ask, but I just wasn't quite sure how to ask it, so I'm just going to kind of wing it here. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm kind of a casual UFC fan, especially as of, last couple of years. But, I mean, when I hear some of those things that Conor said today, I mean, he went on and on. And part of me does think at times, I was like, man, this is getting to WWE standards now.
Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous. It's getting, I don't know if scripted really is the right word, or maybe they're just selling it a little bit more, but it almost seems like it is fake, and that doesn't take away anything from the actual fight, because there's nothing fake about what happens inside of the octagon. But some of the play up into the fight, the lead in, it just kind of seems like this is getting a little childish at this point. They had to have just written this up. Like, nobody talks like that. But it sounds like this guy might just actually talk like that.
I mean, I will say this. Connor did lift up a metal chair today, like WWE style, and they took it from him pretty easy. And I know Conor McGregor he just fights at 155 pounds, and that's really small for a man, but he got picked up pretty easy by Dana White. It didn't take much to restrain him. So, I mean, a lot of people, I've read that a lot. I saw a lot of tweets about it. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where if you watch wrestling, you just enjoy it, and you just forget about it. And I don't spend my time worrying if it's staged or not. It's such a quick thing, 30 minutes today. I will say this, though. I met Conor McGregor twice before. At both the last 2 years Super Bowls, and off microphone, off camera, when it's just him, like, he's super nice and he's pretty mellow, but that's not what he gets paid for. He gets paid to promote a fight, and then he gets paid to go beat somebody up. So when it's showtime, it's showtime. You know, like, I'm sure Richard Sherman's not that outlandish and outspoken off the field when he's not in a press conference. You know, I'm sure it's you know, when the cameras are on, people are different. And I really think that whether it's staged or not, when the cameras are on, Conor McGregor's ready to shine at all times.
That's a really good point. I like that a lot. Alex, before I let you go, let's talk UFC 205 one more time here. Yep. Alvarez, McGregor, who do you got and why?
So I see this fight going two ways, and then I'll tell you my prediction. Eddie Alvarez is a wrestler. He's a grinder. He'll put you against the fence. He will grind you out for 5 rounds. He was not sorry about it, whether he's boring or not. That's what he loves to do. Conor McGregor is flashy. Conor McGregor is all about that stand-up game. We've seen him on his back, and we've seen him struggle before. We saw him tap out against Nate Diaz. We saw Chad Mendez put him on his back and cut him up pretty bad. Then he gassed out, and Conor knocked him out. So I see it going two ways. If Eddie Alvarez wins, it's going to be a grind out, not knock him out, nothing like that. It's going to be a grind out, ground and pound, old school wrestling match with Conor on his back or against the fence for the majority of the fight. Or I see Conor kind of tearing him up, jabbing him away, taking him low, being a little flashy when he gets comfortable. So all that being said, Conor McGregor is going to win this fight. He just has shown me when he has a camp under his belt, when he has the proper training, and he knows who he's fighting for more than 10 days, he's really hard to beat. He really is hard to beat. So Eddie could definitely make it a fight, and I really wouldn't be surprised if he wins. But in my head, I see Conor TKO because he doesn't have that knockout, go to sleep kind of power, but he does have that overwhelming, beat you over and over and over until the ref jumps in kind of power. And I like Conor. I like Conor in maybe the 3rd or 4th round.
All right, there it is. You heard it here first, right?
Yeah, mark that tape. Play it on Monday.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Hey, Alex, I really appreciate it, man. I learned a lot. I kept you longer than I had planned, but I learned a lot. I hope somebody listening in learned a lot as well, and you got me excited for Saturday night.
I'll tell you what, though, dude. Even if you're not going to buy the pay-per-view, do yourself a favor and tune in at 4 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, because those free fights, the undercards, are sick. They're really sick. They're really good. So, and you can mark that tape too, because if they suck, then I'll pay for your free fight.
Yeah. Well, I guess that makes sense, right? I mean, this is a relatively big fight for them, obviously being in New York and Conor McGregor being on the ticket. I would assume every big pay-per-view is kind of a big deal for the UFC because it's every 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
But
dude, put it this way: there's a guy, a Russian fighter, who was actually going to fight Eddie Alvarez for his belt on Saturday until Conor McGregor decided, no, I want to fight him, and whatever Conor wants, Conor gets. That guy that was supposed to fight for the championship was 23-0, who is really good too. He's not even on the pay-per-view. He's on those free fights, and he's not even the main event on the free fights. That's how stacked up this card is. Like, the guy that was going to fight for the championship isn't even on the pay-per-view anymore. Like, that's how big this card is so far.
Well, now you got me interested. Now I'm for sure going to watch. Alex, I really appreciate it, man.
You got it, man. Anytime.
All right. Excellent stuff from Alex Padilla on Twitter at AlexPadilla86. One of my colleagues at the Mighty 1090 produces the Scott and Billy Ray show. I sincerely mean that. I learned a lot. And I told you earlier, that was something that I was not uncomfortable doing, but I had to reach a little bit. I had to that was out of my wheelhouse because I don't know really much of anything about UFC. I'm a very casual fan over the last couple of years. Oh, Ronda Rousey's fighting. She's hot. Okay, cool. I'll watch that. Conor McGregor, he seems cool. Let's watch that. It hadn't been much more than that. So to hear, kind of the history of how UFC got to, the point that it's at now, as big as it is now, and especially being out in New York now, that was fun for me. I learned a lot. So, hey, that's going to wrap it up for episode 31 of the Reindl Report. I really thank you guys for listening in. Thank you again to Alex Padilla joining me for 30 minutes on the podcast. I really appreciate that from him. Thanks for listening in. You can go on iTunes and get all of these podcasts, all these interviews. Everything's on iTunes now. Just subscribe. Get them right to your phone as soon as these go up online. Get them right to your computer. However you listen to iTunes, wherever devices you have them on. Leave me a comment if you'd like. Subscribe, comment. That's how they move up in the rate. I don't know. You can also go to the reindlreport.blogspot.com. Everything is archived on there as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at @thepolarbearsd. That's going to do it for this week. We will talk to you next week.